The Alder River ran cold in October, its surface black glass reflecting the first street lamps of dusk. Daniel Brooks held his daughter's hand as they walked the riverside path, their routine after her therapy sessions at Ravenport Children's Hospital. Mia, 7 years old with her mother's dark curls, hummed a song she'd learned that day. "Dad, can we feed the ducks next time?" "Sure, sweetheart, we'll bring bread." The scream split the evening air like breaking ice. Daniel's head snapped toward the sound. 50 yards ahead, a figure in business attire stumbled on the wet embankment, arms pinwheeling. The splash came before he could shout a warning. "Stay here." He pushed Mia toward a bench. "Don't move." His boots pounded the pathway. The woman's head surfaced once, mouth open in terror, then vanished beneath the current. Daniel didn't think. He kicked off his jacket and dove. The cold was a fist closing around his chest. October runoff from the mountains made the Alder deadly this time of year. He surfaced, gasping, scanning the dark water. There, a pale hand breaking the surface 20 feet downstream. 3 powerful strokes brought him close. He grabbed fabric, felt it tear, then found her wrist. She thrashed, blind with panic, and her elbow caught his jaw. Stars burst behind his eyes. "Stop fighting," he choked. "I've got you." Maybe she heard him. Maybe exhaustion took over. Her body went limp as he hooked an arm across her chest and kicked toward the bank. The current dragged at them both, but Daniel had grown up on this river. He knew where the eddies ran gentle, where the rocks offered handholds. His fingers found stone, then mud, then grass. He hauled them both onto the bank and collapsed beside her, lungs screaming. She wasn't breathing. Training kicked in. Daniel rolled her onto her side, struck between her shoulder blades. Water poured from her mouth. Again. More water. Then a rattling gasp, and she coughed violently, retching river water onto the grass. "That's it," he said, steadying her shoulder. "Breathe." Rain began to fall, light at first, then harder. The woman pushed herself to her knees, dark hair plastered to her face. In the weak glow of the street lamp, Daniel saw expensive clothing ruined by mud and water, jewelry glinting at her throat. She looked at him with eyes that held shock and something deeper, a kind of animal terror that had nothing to do with drowning. "You," her voice came out broken. "You needed help." "No." She shook her head, trembling violently now. Rain ran down her face. "People don't. When they see," she was going into shock. Daniel stripped off his soaked flannel shirt, leaving only his t-shirt, and draped it over her shoulders. "We need to get you warm. Hospital's 10 minutes. No hospital." The words came fast, almost frantic. "No. No questions. I can't. You almost died." "I know." Her laugh was ragged. "I know. I need to ask you something." Daniel glanced back at the bench where Mia sat rigid with fear, small hands clutching the wooden slats. He needed to get to his daughter. This woman needed emergency care, but something in her face stopped him. "What?" The woman met his eyes. Rain dripped from her chin. "Would you stay? If I undressed everything?" Daniel went still. "I don't mean." She gestured helplessly at her soaked clothes. "Not. I mean the things I don't show anyone. Would you stay if you saw who I really am?" The question hung between them, raw and strange and desperately honest. This wasn't about bodies or seduction. Daniel recognized the tone because he'd heard it in his own voice 2 years ago, standing at his wife's grave with a 6-year-old daughter, wondering if anyone would stay when they saw how broken he was. "I'm Daniel," he said quietly. "That's my daughter, Mia. And right now, you need to get warm before hypothermia sets in. After that, you can ask me anything you want." Victoria Hale's penthouse occupied the top 3 floors of Ravenport's tallest building. Daniel knew this because the doorman recognized her immediately, despite the muddy ruins of her suit. and because the private elevator required a keycard that opened directly into her home. "I'm fine now," Victoria said for the third time, though her hands still shook as she punched the button. "You should go back to your daughter. Mrs. Chen from 4B is with her," Daniel said. Their neighbor had appeared within minutes of his call, wrapped Mia in her cardigan, and promised hot chocolate. "And you're not fine." The elevator doors opened onto hardwood floors, floor-to-ceiling windows, and the kind of minimalist wealth that made Daniel acutely aware of his muddy boots. Victoria moved through the space like a ghost, leaving wet footprints. "Guest bathroom is there." She pointed down a hallway. "Towels in the cabinet." "I need to." She didn't finish, just disappeared through another door. Daniel found the bathroom, dried off as best he could, and emerged to find Victoria standing at the windows in an oversized sweater and soft pants, staring at the city lights. She'd wrapped her wet hair in a towel. Without the armor of her business suit, she looked younger. Vulnerable. "Tea?" she asked without turning. "Sure." They sat at her kitchen island, expensive mugs warming their hands. The silence stretched. Victoria's eyes kept darting to the windows, the door, anywhere but Daniel's face. "You asked me a question," he said finally. "I did." She set down her mug. "Didn't sound like shock." "Sounded like you meant it." Victoria's jaw tightened. For a moment, Daniel thought she'd retreat behind professional politeness and usher him out. Instead, she took a shaky breath. "I have a board meeting tomorrow at 9 a.m. 16 people who respect Victoria Hale, CEO of Hale Dynamics, who makes decisions worth millions. They see someone competent, powerful, put together." Her voice dropped. "They don't see the woman who's terrified of being alone in her own apartment after dark, who hasn't been swimming in 15 years, who flinches when someone stands too close." "What happened? Would you stay if I told you?" The question again. Daniel thought about Mia, who sometimes woke screaming from nightmares about the night her mother died, who saw the school counselor twice a week, who Daniel loved with a fierceness that scared him because it was all he had left. "Yeah," he said, "I would." Victoria's eyes finally met his. She stood, walked to the window, and with deliberate slowness, lifted the hem of her sweater. Daniel saw the scars immediately. They ran up her left side from hip to shoulder, old burns, the kind that came from fire, healed but permanent, the kind that changed skin texture and color forever. She let the sweater drop and turned to face him, chin lifted. Waiting. "How old were you?" Daniel asked. 7. House fire. My parents got my brother out first. By the time my father came back for me, the staircase was gone. He went through a window." Her voice stayed steady, reciting facts. "I spent 4 months in the burn unit, 26 surgeries over 10 years. Daniel said nothing. Words felt insufficient. "People see them and they change," Victoria continued. "Not obviously, they just look away, get uncomfortable. Treat me like I'm fragile, or damaged, or..." She stopped. "I wanted to know if you'd do that too." "I wouldn't. You say that now. I say that because I know what it's like to be afraid people will leave when they see the truth." Daniel looked at his hands. "My wife died 2 years ago. Aneurysm. She was fine at breakfast, dead by dinner. Mia found her." Victoria's expression shifted. "I'm not comparing tragedies," he added quickly. "Just..." Before Victoria could respond, Daniel's phone erupted with noise. "Mrs. Chen's number." His stomach dropped as he answered. "Daniel, honey, don't panic. But Mia's running a fever. It came on fast, she's at 103 and asking for you." The world tilted. "I'm coming." He was on his feet, grabbing his jacket. Victoria stood too, alarm on her face. "Mia?" she asked. "Fever." "I have to go." He was already at the elevator, jamming the button. I'm sorry. Go, Victoria said. Go to your daughter. The elevator doors closed on her face, and Daniel didn't look back. Victoria stood alone in her penthouse, the silence oppressive now. She touched her side where the scars lay hidden again beneath soft cotton. For 20 minutes, she'd believed someone might stay, might see past the damage. Stupid. People always left when things got complicated. She pulled out her phone, started to type a message, then deleted it. What was she supposed to say? Sorry, your daughter is sick, but I wanted you to know my trauma matters too? Selfish. She was being selfish. Victoria set the phone down and stared at it anyway, waiting for it to light up. It didn't. Ravenport Children's Hospital smelled like antiseptic and fear. Daniel held Mia's small hand as doctors examined her, took blood, spoke in low voices about white cell counts and possible infections. Mr. Brooks? Dr. Patterson, a woman with kind eyes and gray streaks in her hair, gestured him into the hallway. We're admitting her overnight for observation. Her fever isn't responding to standard medication, and given her medical history, she didn't have to finish. Mia had been born premature, spent her first month in NICU. Her immune system had always been fragile. What aren't you telling me? Daniel asked. Dr. Patterson hesitated. There's a possibility of complications. We're running additional tests. I want to be prepared for anything. The floor seemed to shift beneath Daniel's feet. He'd survived his wife's death by focusing on Mia, by being the strong one, by never letting her see him break. But standing in this fluorescent hallway, he felt the weight of it, the responsibility of being everything to one small person who deserved so much more. Can I stay with her? Of course. Daniel spent the night in a chair beside Mia's bed, watching her chest rise and fall, checking her temperature every hour. The fever climbed. 104. 104.5. The nurses came more frequently. A specialist was called in. At 3 a.m., delirious, Mia called for her mother. Daniel held her hand and tried not to fall apart. Victoria arrived at Ravenport Children's Hospital at 6:30 a.m., wearing jeans and a simple sweater clothes she never wore in public. She'd spent the night pacing her penthouse, checking her phone. Finally giving up on pride and calling every hospital in the city until she found them. The nurse at the desk pointed her to room 428. She found Daniel asleep in a chair, head tilted at an uncomfortable angle, still wearing yesterday's muddy jeans. His hand rested on the bed beside a small figure beneath white sheets. The girl, Mia, slept fitfully, her dark curls damp with sweat. Victoria stood in the doorway, uncertain. This was private. She had no place here. Then Mia's eyes opened. She looked at Victoria with the strange clarity of sick children and whispered, "Are you an angel?" Daniel jerked awake. "Mia, honey." He saw Victoria and froze. "I'm sorry," Victoria said quickly. I wanted to make sure she was okay. I'll go. Wait." Daniel stood, rubbed his face. "You came. You left in a hurry. I was worried." They moved into the hallway, leaving Mia to the quiet beeping of monitors. Daniel leaned against the wall, exhaustion carved into every line of his face. "High fever," he said. "Possible infection. They're trying to get it under control. What can I do? Nothing. There's nothing anyone can do." Victoria understood that helplessness. She'd felt it at 7 years old, trapped in a burning house, screaming for someone to fix it while the world burned around her. "I'm sorry I left last night," Daniel said. "You trusted me with something important, and I just—" "Stop." Victoria's voice was firm. "Your daughter needed you. That's not abandonment. That's being a good father." Daniel's eyes were bloodshot. "I wanted to text, check on you, but I couldn't think about anything except—" "I know." They sat in the hallway on uncomfortable plastic chairs. The hospital woke up around them, shift changes, breakfast carts, the steady rhythm of institutional care. The truth is, Victoria said quietly. I was hurt when you left. Not because you went to Mia, of course you did, but because I've spent my whole life being second to something else. My parents' grief over losing the house. My brother's normalcy. My board's quarterly targets. Just once, I wanted to be someone's first choice. Daniel turned to look at her. You are. Don't lie to make me feel better. I'm not. He rubbed his eyes. When I got Mrs. Chen's call, my body was moving before my brain caught up. But sitting here all night, I kept thinking about you alone in that penthouse, wondering if you were okay, wishing I could be two places at once. He managed a weak smile. Turns out, I'm bad at that. Before Victoria could respond, Dr. Patterson emerged from Mia's room. Mr. Brooks, good news. The fever broke an hour ago. We'll keep her one more day to be safe, but she's going to be fine. The relief that flooded Daniel's face was so intense it hurt to witness. He pressed the heels of his hands to his eyes, shoulders shaking. Victoria stood and approached Dr. Patterson. What about the medical costs? Insurance covers most. No. Victoria pulled out her phone. Bill everything to Hale Dynamics. Medical expense reimbursement for employee family members. I'm not your employee, Daniel said. Consultant work. Retroactive. Victoria met his eyes. Let me do this. Dr. Patterson looked between them, bemused, then shrugged. After she left, Daniel shook his head. You can't just... I can. I did. Victoria crossed her arms. You saved my life. I'm paying for your daughter's hospital stay. We're even. That's not how this works. Then how does it work? Daniel stared at her, then laughed exhausted, genuine. I have no idea. They stayed through the morning. Mia woke fully at 8, fever gone, asking for pancakes. The nurse brought hospital food that Mia declared yucky, so Victoria went down to the cafeteria and returned with actual pancakes, syrup, and orange juice. You're the river lady, Mia said between bites. Dad said you fell in. I did. Your dad saved me. He's good at that. Mia's voice was matter of fact. He saved me when Mom died. I was really scared, but Dad said we'd be okay together. Victoria looked at Daniel, who'd gone very still. Your dad was right, Victoria said gently. After Mia fell back asleep, Daniel and Victoria took their coffee to the small family lounge at the end of the hallway. Dawn was breaking over Ravenport, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Tell me about the fire, Daniel said. Victoria cupped her hands around the paper cup, feeling its warmth. December 14th, 1995. I was 7. My brother was 10. Someone left the space heater too close to the curtains. We all went to bed, and I woke up to smoke. She could still smell it sometimes. Acrid. My dad got Cameron out first because he was closer to the stairs. He told me to wait by the window, he'd be right back. But the fire spread so fast. When he came back, the hallway was gone. He tried to break through, but the smoke, her throat tightened. I was alone for 8 minutes. Felt like hours. How did you get out? Firefighter came through the roof, carried me down a ladder. I was unconscious by then from smoke inhalation. They said I almost didn't make it. Daniel was quiet for a long moment. 8 minutes alone in a burning house. That's enough to break anyone. It did break me. For a long time. Victoria took a sip of coffee. But eventually you have to choose. Stay broken or learn to live with the cracks. Which did you choose? Both. I'm still learning. Daniel nodded slowly. Emma, my wife, died at home. Mia found her in the kitchen. I was at work. Got there as the ambulance was leaving. They'd already called it. His voice stayed steady, but Victoria saw his hand shake slightly. Mia wouldn't talk for 3 days, he continued. Just sat in her room, staring at nothing. I wanted to fall apart, but I couldn't, because she needed me to be okay. So I learned to fall apart in the shower or in the car on the way to work, anywhere she couldn't see. I became really good at crying silently. Victoria felt something crack open in her chest. That must have been lonely. It was. It still is sometimes. Daniel met her eyes. But then I meet someone else who knows what it's like to be scared and keep going anyway. And it feels a little less lonely. They sat together as the sun rose. Two people who'd learned to carry their scars, finding unexpected comfort in shared understanding. Mia was discharged the next afternoon with strict instructions for rest and follow-up appointments. Daniel brought her home to their small apartment on Maple Street. 2 bedrooms, minimal furniture, the kind of place you ended up when you were rebuilding from nothing. Victoria called that evening to check in. "She's fine," Daniel reported, watching Mia color at the kitchen table. "Good, that's good." A pause. "Would you—" Daniel stopped, started again. "Would you want to come for dinner?" "Nothing fancy, just pasta and salad. You're cooking for me? Unless you're afraid of my cooking." Victoria found herself smiling. "I'll risk it." She showed up an hour later with a bouquet of flowers and a children's book, something about a brave mouse who was scared of the dark. Mia loved it immediately and demanded Victoria read it 3 times. They ate Daniel's surprisingly decent spaghetti at a table barely big enough for 3. Mia chattered about her school, her friend Emma, same name as her mother, which Daniel handled with practiced ease, and her dream of becoming a veterinarian. "Because animals don't judge you," Mia explained seriously. Victoria glanced at Daniel, who looked away quickly. After dinner, Mia fell asleep on the couch during a movie. Daniel carried her to bed while Victoria washed dishes. "You don't have to do that," he said, returning. "I know." They stood in his tiny kitchen, and Victoria felt something she hadn't experienced in years. Contentment, not happiness that felt too bold. Just quiet satisfaction with where she was, who she was with. "Thank you," Daniel said, "for coming, for the book. She's easy to care about. She likes you. I like her too." Daniel stepped closer. "And me?" Victoria's heart kicked against her ribs. "You're tolerable." He smiled, the first real smile she'd seen from him, warm and genuine and unguarded. "I can work with tolerable." They didn't kiss. It felt too soon, too fragile. But when Victoria left that night, Daniel's hand brushed hers in the doorway, and she carried that touch home like a secret. For 3 weeks, Victoria lived in a bubble of cautious hope. She rearranged her schedule to have dinner with Daniel and Mia twice a week. She learned that Mia was terrified of thunderstorms, that Daniel made terrible jokes when he was nervous, that their little family had room for one more person if that person was careful with their hearts. Then the article published. The Real Victoria Hale. CEO's Hidden Scars and Childhood Trauma. It ran in Ravenport Business Review with photos, old ones from the hospital. One of her at age 10 with visible scars on her arm, and several recent images clearly taken with a telephoto lens showing the texture of her skin beneath summer clothing. The article was clinical, sympathetic even, but it laid bare everything Victoria had spent her adult life concealing. The fire, the surgeries, the years of therapy. Her parents were quoted expressing their ongoing grief over that night. Her brother mentioned how it had changed the family forever. Anonymous sources speculated whether her drive for success stemmed from survivor's guilt, whether her famously rigid control was overcompensation for trauma, whether shareholders should be concerned about her psychological stability. Victoria read it in her office at 6 a.m. before anyone else arrived. Then she did what she'd always done when exposed. She went completely numb. By noon, her assistant had fielded 43 media requests. By 2 p.m., the story had been picked up by 3 national outlets. By 4 p.m., someone had created a discussion thread online dissecting every public photograph of her, circling any visible scar, speculating about her personal life. Victoria canceled her afternoon meetings and went home. Daniel called 6 times. She didn't answer. She stood in her penthouse, staring at the city that had always felt both like home and like enemy territory, and felt the old familiar urge to disappear. To control the narrative by removing herself from it entirely. Her phone buzzed again. A text from an unknown number. "Those scars make you look damaged. No wonder you're alone." Victoria deleted it. She turned off her phone. At 8 p.m., someone knocked on her door. She checked the camera, Daniel, holding Mia's hand. She almost didn't answer. Almost let them think she wasn't home. But Mia's face in the camera feed looked worried. And Victoria found herself opening the door despite everything. "I'm fine," she said before Daniel could speak. "You didn't need to come." "Yes, I did." Mia peered up at her. "Dad said people were being mean to you. That's not fair. You're really nice." Something in Victoria's chest cracked. She knelt down to Mia's level. "Sometimes people are scared of things they don't understand. It makes them say unkind things. Are you scared?" Victoria considered lying. Then remembered Daniel's face in the hospital hallway, how exhausted honesty looked. "Yes, I'm very scared." "Of what?" "That everyone will see me differently now. That I'll always be the woman with scars instead of just Victoria." Mia thought about this seriously. Then she pushed up her sleeve, revealing a small burn mark on her forearm. "I got this from the toaster. Dad says scars mean we survived something hard." Victoria's vision blurred. She looked up at Daniel, who watched her with steady eyes. "You don't have to talk about it," he said. "You don't owe anyone your story, but hiding in here won't make it go away." "What will?" "Standing in it. Letting people see you're still here." Victoria stood slowly. "I don't know if I can." "Then we'll stand with you." The emergency board meeting at Hale Dynamics was called for Friday morning. Victoria knew what they'd say before they said it. Take a leave of absence, let the attention die down, protect the company's image. She arrived wearing a sleeveless dress. The boardroom went silent as she entered. 16 faces turned toward her, and she saw them all catalog her scars, the ones on her arms, visible now, deliberate. "Good morning," Victoria said, taking her seat at the head of the table. "I assume you've all read the article." Ethan Cole, VP of Finance and her longtime rival for CEO, cleared his throat. "Victoria, we're concerned about the impact on company perception. Perhaps a brief sabbatical while this blows over. The shareholders care about our Q4 earnings, which are up 18%. They care about the 3 major contracts we've secured this quarter. They care about our stock price, which has climbed steadily under my leadership." Victoria met each board member's eyes in turn. "My childhood trauma is mine. It doesn't belong to the shareholders, the media, or any of you. It certainly doesn't affect my ability to run this company. But the negative attention will pass. Scandals always do." Victoria leaned forward. "What won't pass is the message we send if I hide. That trauma makes someone unsuitable for leadership. That survivors should be ashamed. That scars disqualify you from success." "That's not what we're saying," another board member protested. "Then what are you saying?" Silence. "I'm not taking a leave," Victoria continued. "I'm not issuing an apology for something that happened when I was 7 years old. I'm going to do my job, exactly as I've been doing it. And if any of you can't support that, now's the time to speak up." More silence. Then Margaret Chen, the oldest board member and a woman Victoria deeply respected, spoke. "I think we've seen what we needed to see. Victoria remains the best CEO this company has ever had. Unless anyone objects?" No one did. "Then I move we table this discussion and return to actual business." The meeting continued. Victoria presented Q4 projections, discussed expansion plans, and functioned exactly as she always had. But when it ended and the room cleared, she found Ethan Cole lingering. "That was quite a performance," he said. "It wasn't a performance." "Of course it was. You've always been good at controlling the narrative." Ethan smiled, and it didn't reach his eyes. But stories like this don't just disappear, especially when someone keeps reminding people. Victoria went very still. You leaked it. I provided context to a journalist who asked questions. There's a difference, because this company needs leadership that isn't compromised by personal weakness. You've always been too damaged for this role, Victoria. The board just needed to see it. Victoria thought about 100 cutting responses. Instead, she said quietly, "Get out of my building. Security will escort you to clear your desk. You can't fire me. Watch me." She made the call right there. Ethan Cole left Hale Dynamics that afternoon, and Victoria put out a brief statement. Mr. Cole has been terminated for breach of confidentiality and ethics violations. Hale Dynamics has zero tolerance for those who weaponize private information. Daniel was waiting in the lobby when she finally left the building at 7 p.m. He'd been sitting there for 3 hours, Mia doing homework beside him on the corporate couch. "You didn't have to wait," Victoria said. "I know." He stood. "How'd it go?" "I didn't hide." "Good." Mia looked up from her math worksheet. "Does this mean we can still have movie night?" Victoria felt the day's armor crack just slightly. "Yeah, we can still have movie night." 3 months later, Daniel convinced Victoria to take a weekend trip to Pine Hollow, a small town in the mountains where the Alder River started as a gentle stream. They rented a cabin with a view of the water. Mia spent the first day catching tadpoles and building fairy houses from pine cones. Victoria helped, kneeling in the dirt in jeans and a t-shirt, her scars visible and unremarked upon. On the second day, they went to the town pool. Victoria hesitated at the entrance, seeing families in swimsuits, hearing the echo of chlorine and childhood teasing. Daniel took her hand. "You don't have to," he said quietly. "I want to." She wore a one-piece swimsuit that showed her scars clearly. As they walked to the pool deck, she felt eyes turn toward her, felt the familiar weight of scrutiny. Then Mia grabbed her hand. "Race you to the shallow end." They jumped in together, and the water was just water. No one stared, or if they did, it didn't matter, because Mia was laughing, and Daniel was smiling, and Victoria was swimming for the first time in 15 years. That evening, after Mia fell asleep in the cabin's twin bed, Daniel and Victoria sat on the porch, watching the stars emerge. "I have something to ask you," Daniel said. Victoria's heart kicked up. "What?" He pulled a small box from his pocket. Inside was a simple silver ring with 3 stones: emerald, sapphire, ruby. "They're birthstones," Daniel explained. "Mia's, mine, and yours." Victoria couldn't speak. "I'm not asking you to be Mia's mother. Emma will always be her mom, and that's right. But I'm asking if you'd be her family anyway. If you'd be mine." His voice dropped. "The first time I saw you, you asked if I'd stay if you undressed everything, if I'd stay when I saw who you really were. The answer is yes. I see you, Victoria. All of you, and I'm asking you to stay too." Victoria looked at the ring, at this man who'd saved her from drowning and then saved her again by simply refusing to leave. "I don't know how to be part of a family. I might be terrible at it. Then we'll figure it out together. I'll probably still work too much and forget important dates. I'll remind you. I'm scared." "Me too." Victoria took the ring from the box and slipped it on her finger. It fit perfectly. They were married 2 months later in a small ceremony by the Alder River, at the exact spot where Daniel had pulled Victoria from the water. Mia served as flower girl and ring bearer simultaneously, taking the job very seriously. When Victoria said her vows, she wore a sleeveless dress. When the officiant pronounced them married, the small gathering of friends and family applauded. And Victoria realized with sudden clarity that not one person was looking at her scars. They were looking at her face, at her joy, at the family she'd chosen and who had chosen her back. That night, in their new home, a real house with a yard for Mia and windows that faced the river, Daniel found Victoria standing at the bedroom window. "Regrets?" he asked. wrapping his arms around her from behind. Victoria leaned into him. The opposite. What's the opposite of regret? She thought about it. Gratitude, peace, belonging. That's 3 things. I'm counting them all. She turned in his arms to face him. You asked if I'd stay if you saw all of me. I need you to know I'm staying. Whatever comes, I'm staying. Daniel kissed her forehead, her cheeks, finally her lips. Good, because I'm not letting you go. They stood together in the darkness. 2 people who'd learned that survival wasn't just about living through trauma, it was about finding someone brave enough to see your scars and stay anyway. About choosing each other, deliberately, every day. Victoria had asked once if he'd stay if she undressed everything. She'd meant her armor, her defenses, the carefully constructed walls that kept people at a distance. Daniel had answered by building a home where she could be naked, in every way that mattered, vulnerable, honest, seen, and still be safe. From the next room came Mia's sleepy voice. Dad? Victoria? Can I sleep in your room? I had a bad dream. They found her standing in the hallway, clutching a stuffed rabbit. Victoria picked her up without hesitation. Come on, sweetheart. You can sleep between us. They all piled into the bed, imperfect, complicated, scarred, and completely whole. A family not made from perfection, but from the courage to stay when staying was hard. Outside, the Alder River ran past their windows, dark and cold and endless. But inside, there was warmth and light, and 3 people who'd learned that the bravest thing you can do is let yourself be fully seen, and stay anyway.